My dear friends, we have gathered in this sacred hour not to weep without hope, but to give thanks, profound thanks, for a life that rose like a song from the rough soil of history, a life shaped by struggle, sustained by faith, and sanctified by service. We are here to remember with grateful hearts the Honorable Secretary, Alexis Herman. My father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, very much wanted to be here today, but he asked that I share these remarks. Life can be both cruel and poetic. God has a way of lifting the humble and confounding the proud. There is irony and wonder in the journey of this daughter of the South. My father shared with me of all of his early memories. It started with Mrs. Herman when she was organizing Alabama for him in the time of the Carter administration, and he was late. And he says this woman with a petite woman with a twang and a commanding presence met him with fire for being late. But she's dealt with everyone the same standard of respect, and that made him respect and admire her all the more for it. He reminded me that she came from the same state that crowned Jefferson Davis and tried to bury our dreams. But she was not defined by that bitter inheritance. No, she took what this nation had long called disgrace, and by the work of her hands and the courage in her soul, she transformed it into God's amazing grace. All she ever inherited was struggle, but from that struggle she found strength, and from that burden she found a blessing. She understood something deep in her bones, that in America, dignity is never given, it is won and must be won every day. Yet she was afforded the opportunity to be fragile, but she chose instead to be firm. She chose to carry the load. She chose to walk with the weary. She knew that fragility was a privilege denied to most black women. And so she stood strong, not only for herself, but for those who came before her and for those whom would follow. Her life was a sermon, preached not from a pulpit, not from something long, but from a hard road of public service. She did not shout, she showed. She did not boast, she built. She was born in Mobile, Alabama, that old port town where the last slave ship, Clotilda, slipped in under the cover of shame. Born in a land where the law bent not towards justice, but cruelty. Born beneath the long shadow of Jim Crow. And yet, look what the Lord has done. Out of that same soil, that same land, where cotton once wore the blood of our people, where the whip cracked and the hope seemed to die, where it was filled with magnolias and nooses, where children had been bombed in the basement of a church. Out of that grew a flower of dignity and power called Alexis Herman. She dared to dream beyond the borders and the limitations of her youth. She even rose up with resistance. She dreamed beyond segregation. She dreamed beyond white supremacy. She dreamed of racial healing and of reconciliation. And not some cheap, sentimental reconciliation, but the costly kind, the kind that demands truth, the kind that demands justice. She was a builder of bridges. She laid down tracks not of steel, but of freedom. She walked by her dear friend and my father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, as he lifted high a dream that many thought impossible, that an African American could aspire to be the president of this land. Children of slaves and those of slaveholders might move together towards a more perfect union. Alexis Herman had helped hammer the nails and tie the rails. She understood something deep and necessary, that we could not simply resist the present. We had to build a future together. She walked in boardrooms and marched in communities. She spoke the language of labor and of liberation. She understood that work is sacred, that dignity is not reserved for the wealthy, and that policy must also have a conscience. and yet she never lost her rootedness. Got to use an Alabama word. Alexis Herman wore her southernness not as a shame, but as a strength. She was never afraid to sit at the table of power, but she never forgot the kitchens and where her people cooked, nor the fields where they toiled. Friends, we come now not only to mourn, but to marvel. Marvel at what grace can do. Marvel at what God can raise from the ground of grief and oppression. Marvel that a little girl born from Mobile could walk into the cabinet room and sit it as the Secretary of Labor, the first black woman ever to do so, with her friend, the Honorable President William Jefferson Clinton. She is gone from us, yes, but she is gathered now among those cloud of witnesses, Harriet and Rosa, Sojourn, Shirley, and her mentor, Dorothy. And I know she now walks in the light. So let us not say goodbye, but say, fare you well. Fare you well, Secretary Herman. You ran your race. You kept the faith. You believed in us before we believed in ourselves. The scriptures say, what does the Lord require of you? But to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. We love you, Secretary Herman. You've walked the race. You deserve your crown.